Hello, happy Sunday, and happy Mother's Day. For all the moms, grandmas, and motherly figures out there, happy Mother's Day. You are so loved, so cherished, and so important. I hope today, even though amidst all of us staying at home, you are cherished and loved and spoiled. So happy Mother's Day. I want to say thank you for all you do. On behalf of everyone, thank you. In that same breath, I want to acknowledge that today might be a hard day for some of you also. Maybe today reminds you of an estranged relationship you have with a mom or a child. Maybe today reminds you of all the times you've been trying to become a mother. Or maybe today reminds you of the mom that you no longer have. That's okay. Today's a hard day for me and my family. I'm here in Arizona, my husband's here in Arizona, but both our moms are in other states. And for my mom, she lost her mom recently, and my grandma. And for my dad, his mom is away at a senior living community where no one is allowed in or out because they're under lockdown. Today is a hard day. It's a beautiful day, but it's also a hard day for some. And let me just say, both of those feelings of excited and gratitude and thankfulness for being a mom or for having a mom are welcome, but also some of that sorrow of expectations and what we thought today might be are welcome here. It's a safe place here. You're allowed to feel your emotions here because Lord knows I am. But with that being said, today we are continuing our new old series where we're going through the book of Acts and we're looking at seeing what God was doing in the early church and hoping to learn something from it. God is clearly moving amongst our church, and maybe we can learn something of how God is moving in this church. But I have to be honest, when we were dividing who got to speak at what time, if it was going to be me or Austin, and he asked me if there were any series or any weeks I wanted, and I told him without even thinking, I was like, I want Mother's Day. I'm so glad I did, but I have to be honest, I'm a little nervous. Like I said, today's a hard day for me and my family, and later I'll kind of get into a little bit more on that, but these verses are really important, and so I'm eager to meet with you all in this place and dive right in. So today we're in Acts chapter 5, verses 12 through 16. It's pretty short, but that does not negate all that it does and the impact that it has. So let's read it really quick. And reminder, we're in Acts 5, 12 through 16. The apostles performed many signs and wonders among the people, and all the believers used to meet together in Solomon's colonnade. No one else dared join them, even though they were highly regarded by the people. Nevertheless, more and more men and women believed in the Lord and were added to their number. As a result, people brought the sick into the streets and laid them on beds and mats, so at least Peter's shadow might fall on some of them as he passed by. Crowds gathered also from the towns around Jerusalem, bringing their sick and those tormented by impure spirits. All of them were healed. The verses right before this text actually speak more to this text in some ways. The story right before this is the story of Ananias and Sapphira. The story ends in verse 11 that says, "Great fear seized the whole church and all who heard about these events." And then it jumps right in, saying the apostles were performing things. Hold up, let's pause a minute, right? So the church was not in a great spot. The apostles were healing many, but the church was afraid. They just witnessed 2 people die abruptly for lying. We don't have time to go deep into that story, but it's a pretty heavy one. But we jump right in to verse 12, where the apostles are performing signs and wonders. But they're not amongst large crowds to start with, because in verse 13 it says no one wanted to join them. But as they continued performing these signs and wonders, more and more people started coming. And that phrase that we see of signs and wonders, hopefully that sparks something for you. Maybe that's just one of those, oh, I've heard that word before. Signs and wonders immediately make me think of what Jesus did, right? There's a whole section of the signs and wonders that Jesus did. And the story itself makes me think of the parallels to the gospel stories of the girl who just wanted to be healed so bad. And so she reached out and touched Jesus's cloak to be healed. These people were in the colonnade wanting to be healed by Jesus's apostles. And they just wanted to be overshadowed by Peter's shadow. They just wanted that presence because what Peter and the apostles were doing was so big that they thought they could be healed by a shadow. This is the same ordinary Peter that was a fisherman. These are the same apostles that we read about in the Gospels that we relate ourselves to because they're ordinary and they're sometimes dumb and they're not the ordinary people they're not these extremely amazing high people that we think of. They're ordinary. They're fishermen. They're tax collectors. And they're the ones that are healing these people. The people are coming to after this tragic event and just wanting their shadows to touch them. In Matthew 28, we see that the disciples were commissioned to go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In this colonnade, they were doing the work that God had called them to do. There's no catch or gimmick. These ordinary people who walked with Jesus, who saw his signs and wonders, were doing what they were called to do. They were healing. They were doing miraculous work because they were commissioned. The same commission that we have received, right? It's ordinary people doing the extraordinary work of God. That there's something there that isn't in our humanity. It isn't because I can say the right things and catch a spell like Harry Potter. It's different. So what does this mean for us, right? I'm not saying you go out and say abracadabra and pretend to heal people of COVID. That's not what I'm saying. But I think there's two questions that should be asked coming from this. And the one is the ministry of Paradise, or whatever church or ministry you're a part of, attracting people. Also, don't mind my dog in the background. He's just wandering around. So, first question, is the ministry you're a part of, your church, is Paradise attracting people? And two, is your personal ministry, the life you live, the way you live your life so attractive, so enticing that people can't help but come? Both questions practically ask the same thing, but put at two different entities, two different levels. What the apostles were doing were so countercultural, so different. People couldn't help but wonder and be attracted to it, right? They just heard about these people dying, but this still outweighed the miracles they were doing. There was still hope for something more. There was something different that they had never experienced before. Is the joy of Paradise or your personal ministry so contagious that people want to be a part of it, that people want their shadows to touch it? It's like whenever my husband and I go for a walk around our apartment complex around dinner time, we can smell what everyone's cooking. And sometimes we smell something that's so good, all we want to do is just knock on their door and say, what are you cooking? Can we have the recipe? Or maybe can we just eat it with you? It smells delicious. I have to know what it is. It's contagious. It makes me want it so bad. So desperately that I might go knock on someone's door. No, we've never done that, but there's times I kind of want to. But is your ministry, your personal, the life you live, right? We all have a ministry, whether it's we work, not just us that work at a church, but we all have a personal ministry. We all are walking testimonies of who God is, so we're a ministry. Is your ministry so vibrant and contagious that people can't help but think, that's different? Our places of worship should be places that those passing through should feel something different. That if we were to close our doors, the community, those that don't even know us, would notice. It's that smell, right? You smell something good, you want to know it's there. You can't see it. I can't see what my neighbors are cooking, but I want to be a part of it. As I mentioned earlier about Mother's Day and how I wasn't looking forward to this topic, it's because I can't help but read this and ask these questions and think of someone. And as I mentioned earlier, my grandma passed away, and she passed away pretty unexpectedly this February. And she had one of these lives that we were talking about. She was contagious. And shortly after her death, we celebrated it. We celebrated her life and the fruitful and dedicated life she lived. She was one of those people. She was different. Her patience, joy, and overall personality made people want to be a part of whatever she was. Each person that spoke of her and talked about how they knew her knew she was praying for them. Every time my grandma and I spoke on the phone, she would ask how she could be praying for me. And for the past 6 years, I've been living in Arizona. She's been in Colorado, and she was phenomenal. I had a test in college, and I would tell her about it, and she'd want to know what time it was, what day of the week, so her and her prayer warriors could be praying for it. And at first I thought that was silly, right? Like, Grandma, you're not going to help me get an A on my math test. And she'd chuckle at me and says, I know I can't. I don't know the answers either. But I know someone that can help you and give you confidence. She was a presence of peace and joy. She radiated the love of Jesus. She radiated something different than what most were able to offer. She was one of those people you'd walk by and you'd want a part of whatever she was a part of. There was something different about her. She was different in a good way. So how do we do that? How do we be a piece of peace in a world of chaos? How do we be a place of joy and comfort in a world that's so full of chaos, sorrow, and worry? And like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. It's different for all of us. Our lives look dramatically different, but it's that responding instead of reacting, being a presence of safety for all and living out the mission of God. It's in the middle of a pandemic being a place that doesn't spread worry or concern. It acknowledges the truth and acknowledges that we're in the middle of something unprecedented and unknown, but it doesn't share that fear. It reminds people that God is in control. And sometimes that doesn't make us feel much better on paper, but it's that joy and peace like the disciples had. These people wanted to be healed so bad. They wanted to experience God so bad. They wanted to fall in the shadows because it was that powerful. The disciples were that powerful, that magnificent, that radiant, not because of who they were as people. As I said, these were ordinary people, but because of the mission of God that they were doing. So go and make disciples. Be a